Hello and welcome to episode number 18 of Make Some Noise. We're going to make some serious noise today, and our special guest is Robby Vegas. How you doing today, Robby?
I'm doing great, man. Thank you for having me. I'm very happy to be here.
Now, I'm really excited to be interviewing you today because, I'm just learning about who you are, but we have quite a bit in common in the sense that, I do this show, and also, like you, I'm a lifelong Kiss fan. I understand your first album was Kiss Alive. You want to talk about how you first
Yeah.
got into Kiss?
Yeah, so my mother's brother, my uncle, he had a crate of records, and I was like 4 or 5 years old, and I was going through those records, and he pulled out specifically a bunch of Kiss records, and he handed me Kiss Alive 1. And just looking at the cover and opening it up, and the pictures and the liner notes and all that stuff was captivating for me. And of course, I put it on and I dropped the needle on the record player, and Parasite comes on, and the rest was history. I was like, this is the greatest thing I've ever seen and heard. And I just became a lifelong Kiss fan from there. I worshiped the ground that Ace Frehley walked on, and I just wanted to be in Kiss so bad.
And it's funny that you say that Parasite was the song that kind of hooked you because I don't know that most people probably think of that as a Gene Simmons song. They'd be surprised to learn actually Ace was the one that wrote it, and the reason Gene sang it was back in the early days. Ace was very uncomfortable in his ability to sing lead. He hadn't gotten to that point yet, and so he would typically give his songs to Peter or Gene to sing. But
Yeah.
that's kind of interesting, and I imagine like all of us. When Ace passed away sadly last year. That had to have had a major effect on you.
It did. I was very heartbroken by it. In the last couple of years, I was fortunate enough to spend some time with Ace and be around him, and I have my own Ace stories. And I wish that there were more.
Wow.
I did see him a couple of months before he passed, which was, that just worked out.
Yeah.
But yeah, in the last couple of years, just being around Ace and meeting him and having conversations with him was a highlight of my life. And that was, he was the reason I wanted to play guitar. He was the reason why I wanted to be a rock star when I was very, very young. So, it's nice now that I have those memories and those stories to cherish now that he's gone.
Oh, sure. And I was curious, as a kid, did you ever, like a lot of us, did you ever don on the Kiss makeup and try to look like
Yeah.
your favorite member? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, a lot. I actually was Ace for like 4 Halloween straight.
Oh, wow.
I also did I was Paul and I was Peter. I was never Gene. I never did the Gene, but I'm not sure why now that I think of it. But yeah, I pretty much, tried out everybody else. So
Yeah, I mean, I think jeans is a little more. You got to be more a little detail with the makeup,
yeah, yeah,
a little
there's
more
something
massive.
about it.
But the last thing I want to ask you, Kiss related, is because we're going to talk all about who Robby Vegas is today. I know you also are a pro wrestler, and I
Yeah.
was curious as a Kiss fan back when they were doing it. Were you ever aware of that they had their own wrestler, the Demon?
Yes, Dale Torborg. He was the demon, and he was part of WCW, and I thought it was the coolest thing. And Kiss actually performed on a WCW, I think it was a Nitro actually, and I thought that was really awesome back, when they were. It was
I think
right after the
Kiss was one
reunion.
of the first ones to kind of you know doing tie in rock and roll and wrestling. Um,
Yeah,
and they were first on a lot of things. And then of course you got other guys like Chris Jericho that
yeah,
uh, he got his start in wrestling, but he's now doing his thing in music with Fozzy, and he's kind of doing like you, a podcaster, a little bit of everything.
yeah, and a massive Kiss fan who has his own Kiss cover band, Quarantine, and they are fantastic, and they put out singles all the time, of course, of Kiss songs with the lineup that they have right now, and like stellar musicians all around in Quarantine. And again, Jericho is a guy that I recently spent some time with. One of the nicest guys ever. I could talk Kiss, the Beatles, Wayne's World, whatever with him all day long. It's great.
And then I heard in another interview I was watching you on talk about the fact that I think you said you started playing guitar like very early on, like 5 or 6 years old.
I did, yeah. I started playing guitar at 6. I started again because I was so heavily influenced at the time, which sounds weird to say because you're 6 years old. but with Kiss and from Kiss to the Beatles, and then it just spirals from there. But yeah, I started playing at 6 years old, and I was just primarily focused on I wanted to just be a guitar player. But by the time I was a teenager, it was like, well, singing out of necessity is what I
Sure,
called it,
sure.
because it became like, okay, well, I want to, when I'm practicing at home, I'm singing along or whatever. So now I'm starting to sing. And then now it's funny because I actually consider myself like, more of a singer than maybe a guitar player. I'm not like a virtuoso lead guitar player. I play guitar, I can get by, but I never will say that I'm an ace or a CC
A lot of guys
DeVille.
have that story, Robbie. I mean, I heard Dave Mustaine talk about the fact that, of course, coming from Metallica as just the lead guitar player, when he started his own band, Megadeth, he initially had the concept that he was just going to be a guitar player and he wanted to bring in another lead singer.
Yeah.
But he said the problem came in that I was writing my own songs at that point, and I was critical of other singers that were coming in and auditioning the way they were singing my songs. And it was actually his manager that suggested, "Hey, Dave, why don't you just see if you can sing the songs or your songs anyways?"
Yeah, I mean, I went from joining bands as, I started playing in consistent bands at 14 and I was just the lead guitar player. And then all of a sudden in the band after that, I was the lead guitar player and backing vocals. And then from there, it's like, well, I'm going to switch to rhythm guitar player and lead vocals. And yeah, it just kind of spiraled into
And
that
so, how
way.
old were you, Robbie? I mean, when you got to the point of not just playing guitar and playing in bands, but I guess maybe when you became a lead singer. But what's the point where you started writing your own original tunes?
I was writing original tunes at 14.
Wow.
Yeah, as soon as I got into my first band, we were writing. It wasn't, I was more so writing music then than I was lyrics as a teenager. But later into my teens and early 20s, when I was the front man, that's when I was writing the music and the lyrics. Sometimes I was writing the guitar, the bass line, and the lyrics. Sometimes it was just the guitar and the lyrics, but it was always, some kind of combination at that point. And I just never stopped from that point on. I've just been, writing, 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 even in times of silence when it seemed like I was more focused on wrestling, I'm still writing. There's always music to be written
Yeah,
and
and I
putting
don't
out.
know if this is true in your case, but do you think once you started singing and writing lyrics, I mean, it's one thing to kind of write music, as far as like, just starting off with a riff that really gets you going. But now you're putting a little more thought into the music as far as now you're writing lyrics. You got to
Yeah,
think about what the song is about. Do you think that made you any better of a writer once you started
I
doing that?
do. I do. I think the just being moved by something and having to put the words to it definitely made me a better musician, better songwriter. And I think having a wide range of music that I enjoy, because I am a big lyric guy, and people who've had conversations in my personal life with me know that like if a song has really great lyrics, I will gravitate towards it. I like when somebody has something good to say. And
Yeah.
I like, when people are clever with the way that they say it. So I think having that wide range was really good for me, and it did make me better as a musician all around.
When I'm listening to songs, as a music fan, typically I'm listening to the lyrics. I mean, I'm
Mhm.
trying. That's just me. I'm trying to figure out what the song's about. And
Yeah,
there's that thing about interpretation where you know what you wrote the song about, but somebody listening to the song because of their own life experience, they may be getting something else out of the song.
for sure, for sure. And that's totally okay. And I don't mind that some of my songs are open to interpretation. I know what I wrote them about, but if you get something different out of it and it's good for you, then I fully
You
support that
must love that as
100%.
a songwriter, like to hear people come up to you and tell you this is what your song means to me. You're like, wow, I didn't write about that, but man, I'm glad you got that out of it.
Yes, yeah, 100%. Like it's one of the coolest things. Just people enjoying your music in general is one of the coolest things. But then when they connect with it, I think that's a whole nother level, and it's pretty important to me. Yeah,
So we know the current single, of course, that is out on RFK Media,
yeah,
is Rock Show. Um,
yeah,
the best way I would describe it to me, just a great kind of rock and roll anthem in the vein of rock and roll all night, shout it out loud, nothing but a good time, that type of
yeah.
vibe. Yeah.
Yeah, that's exactly what we were going for when David Julian, my co-writer and guitar player, reached out to me and said, "I got this riff, and I think we can use it for your record. I'm going to send it to you and tell me what you think." And of course, he gave me, what he was hearing in it, And as soon as I listened to it, I was like, well, this is going to be my version of Youth Gone Wild, Nothing But a Good Time, Rock and Roll All Night, Come On, Feel the Noise. Like, think of any 80s rock anthem, 70s rock anthem. That's what I heard in the music. And immediately, Rock Show, the words Rock Show
Yeah.
were tumbling around in my head the second I heard it. So I sat down, I started writing, I laid down a vocal track. I emailed it back to him and I said, what do you think about this? And he was like, I think we nailed it. And we just kind of like constructed it from there, little tweaks, little changes, laid down the final mix. And yeah, I'm very, very proud of it.
Wow. And I understand there's a music video in the making. Have you guys filmed that yet, or are you going to?
So what we ended up doing was a lyric video because we do want the people singing along and
Yeah.
pumping their fists. And to do that, they need to know the lyrics. So it is finished and it is in the hands of RFK Media and Ron Keel. So any day now, we're going to be, letting everybody
And of
know that
course,
that's
that's the
coming up.
modern way of doing things. We don't have MTV like we did when we were growing up, but those lyric videos. I mean, it's become a certain little art form to doing them.
Yeah, yeah. And I mean, so the original plan was to do a music video on board the Monsters of Rock cruise, but there's so much going on the cruise that, our schedules are just all over the place. So it was just one of those things where it's like, man, we're not going to be able to gather enough footage for this. And I wanted people singing along and make it an anthem. So it's like, well, they need to know the lyrics. So a lyric video just made
That
sense.
shows you the kind of people you got backing you, Robbie. I mean, um, how does a guy that's not even the album's not even out yet, just a single, and you
Yeah.
get to take part in a cruise like that? That's pretty cool.
Yeah, it was really awesome to be a part of the Monsters of Rock cruise. I had a great time and I got to check out some amazing, amazing musicians and some of my favorite bands. Striper was incredible. The Darkness was incredible. Black Label Society was incredible. But like I said, it's very busy. So it's, sometimes you get to catch a couple songs here and there of somebody and then you got to move on to
I
the
got to
next
tell
thing.
people, if you're a Striper fan, I urge you to go out and get the new Michael Sweet solo album. That's great.
For sure.
I was curious, as a Striper fan, did you happen to hear the Christmas album they put out last year?
Yes, actually. And I thoroughly enjoyed it. I've been a Striper fan my whole life. They're one of my favorite bands. Michael couldn't be nicer. We met on the very first day of the cruise, and we had a conversation. And he was one of the greatest people I've met as far as his kindness and his talent. And he doesn't look down on anybody. It was very cool.
Yeah, that's what I've heard. And the song I really dug off their Christmas album was they got a version of "Take It to the Mountain," and it's
Uh-huh.
interesting because if you know anything about like Christmas songs, they usually like are really rich in the history. And I did some research, come to find out, obviously other people have done it, but that's a song that actually started out as a church hymn like over 300 years ago.
Yeah, no, yeah, I know it. I know. And leave it to Striper to do something like that because they knocked it out of the park.
Yeah, yeah. And so, do you have a release date for the album, or is that something you guys are still working on?
So it'll be before the end of the year for sure. Probably going to start considering exactly when very soon so we could start hyping it up. The album is finished, the mixing and mastering, everything about the album is done. It is jam-packed with amazing musicians on every track, little super groups here and there, which I really had a lot of fun with. So
That's
I think
great.
people are
That's
going to
great.
like that.
I can't wait to hear it. We'll definitely have to have you back, Robbie, when it comes out. But let me ask you, are there any plans for like more live shows, or do you think that'll come once the album drops?
We're going to start doing, so I have some acoustic dates that I need to finish up throughout, the year, but I do have the full band dates coming. We're going to start doing those by likely summer, and just getting the musicians all polished up with the new album
And
really is what's
regarding
happening.
to the musicians that you'll be playing with live, will you have like the same band, or will you have like different musicians in different towns?
I will not have the same band that's on the record, only because everybody on the record plays
Their
like
own projects. Yeah.
they're all over. Yeah, they're all over the place.
Yeah.
But for the most part, yeah, it'll be the same band. And David Julian, who is again, since we talk about Kiss, tied
Yeah.
to Ace Frehley because he was the co-writer of 10,000 Volts along with Steve
I got
Brown.
to tell you that last album he put out, 1,000 volts. Uh, I mean, if, sad in the sense that but he went out on top. You know what I mean? I mean, it was a great album.
Yeah, I mean, I think when 10,000 Volts went, like when it came out and I started seeing it like charting and stuff like that, I wasn't even surprised because one, David Julian is an amazing songwriter and Steve Brown did a great job with Ace and Ace is Ace. and I really think he recaptured his Ace magic. And yeah, so working with Dave because of those ties, like we co-wrote the whole album together, and
Oh
he'll be
wow.
playing the live shows as well. And that was one of the topics of conversation when
As
I
a
met
Kiss
Ace.
fan, I hate to keep bringing up Kiss, but anytime you have anything kind of Kiss related, the fans jump to it. I mean,
Oh
this
yeah.
may be the type of thing that gets you invited to appear at a Kiss convention or something like that because you had the guy who produced Ace Frehley's final album.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, when you share a songwriter with Ace, that's the Kiss fans love their Kisstory, so that's my tie-in with Ace, and that was the topic of conversation with Ace the first time I met him. Say, we share the same co-writer or whatever, and it was just an icebreaker, and it
And
was
then
cool.
I gotta make the point here, Robbie. I don't want people to think that you're just the guy living off the coattails of being a Kiss fan because I urge people to check the single out. And the great thing about the single is it hooked me in the sense that I haven't even heard the rest of the album, but it hooked me enough to like I can't wait to get my hands on the album when it comes out. 'Cause I have a feeling it's going to be as good as that song.
I appreciate that very much, and we are insanely proud of this record. I have shown it to a few people. Steve Brown from Trickster is one of the people that has heard every song on the record already, and he's been very positive about it and a lot of great feedback. And I really think that we made a record that you don't have to skip a track. And that was my big thing is I wanted no filler. I wanted all good songs. I didn't want five good ones, five okay ones. I didn't want 10 bangers, but one that you could throw away. Like, no, I wanted an entire good record. And I
Probably
think we
like
did it.
50 years later, you could still listen to something like Kiss Destroyer. It was all
Yeah.
filler. All killer. Excuse me, no filler.
Yeah, yeah, 100%. Like any of those records from 70s or 80s that people are still in love with and they say, you don't skip a track. Like I would love for people to say that about this record.
And so was the album pretty much like recorded live in the studio? Like, would you have the guys come in the studio with you, or would people just like record it from their home studios and send their parts?
Yeah, we did it. So since so many people are on this record that are from all over the
Sure,
place,
sure.
everybody hit their own studios. So we would pass around all the parts, and then we'd get them all back, and we would put them all together. And yeah, it was pretty cool to
That's
do it
great.
that way,
Whatever it
actually,
takes to get the job done. Now,
for
I'm
sure.
not gonna end the interview without asking, of course, about the fact that you're a pro wrestler,
Huh.
and I think that's the first thing you kind of got into. So you want to talk about that?
Yeah. So I started wrestling about 15 years ago, and been doing it steady ever since.
And did you
And
get into it accidentally, or is it something that you always wanted to do?
it was a yes and no on that question because I always loved it. I considered trying it, but I didn't know how. Like, things were
Yeah.
different back then. I couldn't just like go online and figure this out. Um, so I was in the gym and I was working out, and a guy who was an independent pro wrestler at the time saw me, and he was like, you're pushing a lot of weight for somebody your size. You ever think about getting into pro wrestling? And I was like, yeah, actually, I have.
Mhm.
And I was in my very early 20s, and I went to a training academy with him. Didn't like it, but I found one later because it's not that I didn't like the wrestling, I didn't like the academy. So I
Yeah,
found a different one, and I ended up breaking into the business about a year later. And now fast forward, I've been doing it at, a pretty high level. I've gotten, some FaceTime on Raw and SmackDown, and I've wrestled guys from WWE, ECW, whatever. Um, and I now am one of the trainers and owners of the Buffalo Wrestling Academy. So now I
Oh,
have my own school where I'm trying to bring up the next generation as well.
oh wow. Maybe have you come back and talk about that. That's fun. And you have your own character. Like I'm is Robbie Vegas like a character? Like I guess what I'm asking is when the album comes out, are there plans now to kind of incorporate the wrestling with the music?
I kind of already do. A few years into my wrestling career, somebody asked me, you're this rock and roll musician, singer, guitar player. Why aren't you doing that?
Yeah.
And I was kind of like, what do you mean? And they were like, why aren't you bringing that to wrestling? Like, dress more like a rock star, like you do when you're not wrestling. And so I got some new gear made. They started calling me Rockstar Robbie Vegas as my moniker, and just modeled my first rock and roll pair of wrestling trunks off of Vince Neil from the Shout at the Devil record,
Wow, wow.
and started doing the eyeliner and the whole get up. and it worked, and everything started clicking for me. So now with wrestling, I'm basically just myself. Just I crank it all the way up.
Oh, wow. And did you see a difference in the way people react? I'm talking about your fans.
Yes.
It's,
Yeah, my
okay.
fan base grew substantially because I was being genuine. At that point, I wasn't trying to play a character and I wasn't just generic creator wrestler number one. I was actually me.
And
And I think, go ahead.
don't you love being able to combine those two loves you have,
Yes,
rock?
absolutely. It became much easier for me to just be me and be like, this is what I love, this is who I am. And when I wasn't trying to do it, it just worked.
Yeah,
And so that's, advice that I give to everybody. If you could be you,
yeah,
some people prefer to play the character, but if you could be you and you just
yeah.
crank it up, it 9 times out of 10 it'll work.
I think it make it that much more cooler that being a rock, kind of a rock star persona. Not only do you get to combine your music with what you do there, but you get to wrestle, and it's all one part of one, if you know what I mean.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It's like I said, it's been great. And even now when I have matches and whatever, I if you go to my merch table, you could find the CD single for Rock Show and there's 8x10s and custom bandanas and t-shirts and all that stuff. So everything's all incorporated.
And final thing I got to ask you about, of course, you're also a podcaster, as we said.
Yeah.
And prepping for today's interview, I went and checked out your YouTube page. You got uh, quite a large list of interviews there people can check out. I checked out the one you did with Tommy Skew, of course, from Tesla
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
Bad Marriage. So what's that been like for you?
Well, when I started podcasting, it was like 7 years ago. I actually wasn't even using YouTube. I was just doing the Spotify, Apple stuff. I just, from years of being on the road with music and wrestling, I kind of like fell in love with hearing people's stories. Like I like to read autobiographies. I like to know the how did you get here of people. I like to have those conversations. And some of them were with some really amazing people. And I was like, man, if people could only hear these conversations. And so I decided to start a podcast. And in the last couple of years, I've now added the videos to YouTube, but it used to just strictly be the audio because that's how I always listen was like in the gym or in the car or whatever. So whatever's on YouTube, there's way more if you go onto like Spotify and all those streaming services. But I've had a blast doing it. Since we keep talking about Kiss, I've had Bruce Kulick on a couple times, who's a phenomenal person. Rudy Sarzo is one of my favorites that I've had. Dee Snider is one of my favorites that I've had. Wednesday 13. So like there's really some great people on there. But aside from music, I'm also talking to pro wrestlers, some legends, and I'm also talking to, horror movie icons because I'm big into horror as I sit here in my Halloween shirt.
So you
Um,
mix it up a little. That's cool. And
yeah.
when you have these other wrestlers come on, or any of them aware of what you've done?
Some of them, yeah, yeah, especially now. When I interviewed Demolition Smash, who was also the Repo Man and just recently went into the WWE Hall of Fame a few months ago, we met on a show together a couple times actually. I met him a few times, and but yeah, some of these guys I've sat in locker rooms with. Some of them I've wrestled. Some of them were just aware of each other from being in the business. So it just depends on the person, yeah.
Yeah, and like, how do you usually prepare for like, do you kind of research the person that's coming on, or if you don't know too much about them, or
Yeah, depending on the person. A lot of times I already have like a fairly good idea of what I want to get to,
yeah,
based on because it's all things that I'm heavily interested in to begin with. But there's a few times where I just like to see like, well, maybe something's gone on in the last few years that I don't know about.
yeah,
So I take it from there.
that's pretty cool. And so, what's the name of your podcast so people can check that out?
That's all bets are off with Robbie Vegas.
Oh,
And
that's
yeah, it goes back like 6 or 7 years, so there's plenty of episodes.
wow. And so, it's a little pricey, but I was curious, did you get a chance to get your hands on the Kiss Alive box set?
You know what? It's weird that you say that because I was just thinking about this yesterday because I meant to,
Yeah,
and I totally got sidetracked and I've been, super busy with everything I got
of
going
course,
on.
your own stuff. Yeah,
And yeah, and yesterday I was like, man, damn it, I still didn't buy that. So like I
I
do
hear it's a
want
bit
to
pricey,
pick,
but to me, if you're a collector,
yeah.
it's worth it because I will say this, despite the price, I got mine for about $2.99. It's probably gone down if you go on Amazon, you can get it. But I bring it up because it's one of those things that if you're a collector and you're able to spend that kind of money, to me, it's worth it because you're at the very least you're getting your money's worth.
Yeah, yeah, no, I I feel Kiss is good with that.
Yeah,
I know a lot of people, they poke fun at like, oh, how much merchandise can you have in this money-making machine? But like the fans like it.
yeah.
And if the fans like it, they're going to keep providing it. So
I mean, as a Kiss fan, I like the fact that they're still going strong after 50 years. They just did that
yeah,
thing in Las Vegas. They're going to have another one coming up.
yep, yep,
And
November.
talk about Bruce Kulick. I'm sure you know that he recently suffered some kind of heart,
Yes.
but luckily he's doing better.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. Bruce had like an open heart surgery or something, and he's on like an 8-week recovery plan or something.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, he likes to say that I look like a young Bruce Kulick. But
There you
he
go.
said that a few times. And actually, last summer I was in Wisconsin at Summerfest, and Sebastian Bach was there, and he came walking up to me, and he goes, "Man, I came out of this dressing room here, and I thought you were Bruce Kulick." So we had a laugh about that.
Yeah. Well, Robbie, it was great. It was great getting to know you today. Like I said, this interview will be going up June 2nd. I'll be sure to remind you and send you the link. But thanks for coming on. And when the album drops, I'd love to have you back, come back on.
Oh, absolutely, man. Anytime you just let me know, and this was great. So I do appreciate you having me and giving me a platform. And if do you mind if I plug my social media real quick?
Please do. That's what the whole point is.
So RobbyVegas.com is where you could find links to all the music, the podcast, the socials, but I am most active on my Instagram as far as fan interactions and stuff like that. So that's going to be Robbie_Vegas_official. And make sure you spell it Robbie with a Y because too many people try and put IE.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah. That's kind of like Robbie Crane.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But thank you, man. I appreciate this very
You have
much.
a nice rest of your weekend, and thanks again, Robbie, for coming on. And you got a big fan of me and a supporter, so anytime you're welcome back.
Thank you. I appreciate that very much. You have a good one.
Take care. Bye bye.